So I think it's safe to say that we would all like to experience bliss. We would all like to experience a blissful state. And what I'm going to tell you may sound very counterintuitive, but through meditation, I was able to experience this for myself. And I've always questioned this as well, because it's hard to make sense of it. I've seen Maharaji say that suffering is bliss, that even suffering is bliss. And it was really hard for me to understand that. And while experiencing suffering, I had this strong desire. I had this question come to me. Well, what if I could turn this suffering into bliss? I know that it's possible. So how do I do it? So during meditation, I started to realize that in order to turn suffering into bliss, we have to surrender to the suffering. That's number one. Okay, so how do you do that? How do you surrender to the suffering? Well, you would have to allow the suffering to completely take over. And there's some resistance before that can happen. And that resistance is fear. So we have this fear of suffering, even though we're already suffering. We have a fear that the suffering is going to take over, but the reality is the suffering has already taken over. But the fear is like a door, and suffering is the key, and on the other side of the door is blissfulness. So once I realized that if I could remove this fear, if I could surrender to suffering right now and allow suffering to completely take over my being, then I should be in bliss. And I kid you not, this state of absolute bliss arose within me. And I was in this state of pure bliss for about 20 minutes or so. And it was a really wonderful feeling. And now I see exactly how that mechanism works. And what I'm realizing is that so many of us are addicted to suffering because we somehow know, whether it's subconscious or unconscious, we somehow know that suffering is actually the key to bliss. But it is the fear, which is the door with the lock, that is preventing us to get in. So try this. When you're if you are in deep suffering, get yourself into a meditative state and surrender to your suffering by removing fear. Now, I'm not going to be able to give you any more clear instructions than that, unfortunately. This is something that you have to experience for yourself. But what I'm telling you is that this is going to work as long as you understand these concepts. So in order to surrender to the suffering, you have to remove the fear, and once the fear is gone and the suffering completely takes over, and there's no more resistance, there's no more grasping, there's no more aversion, there's just acceptance. That's when the blissful state will arise. So I hope this message finds you well, and you too can experience some blissfulness in your suffering.